Hey there, Patty Dominguez with episode 126 of the Positioning to Profit podcast. Thank you for being here, checking it out. I'm in your ear holes, and today is going to be a great show. It is a guest show with the joyful writer, Jill R. Stevens, who just launched her book called Create Your Most Delicious Life. Life's a bitch, especially now, make it a joy. The call to action to make it a joy. And so I thought she would be such a great guest to have on the Positioning to Profit podcast because she is a writer. She has written so many books and has so much experience in this movement of engaging people through the written word. And it's so powerful. And as you all know, I love a good story. It is so important to connect at an emotional level. And so that's exactly what we talk about on the show today. We're talking about how to connect at a greater level, how to engage with your premium prospects, how to tell a story so that they're really moved by the words that you share, the stories that you convey, and everything in between. So we had a really, really great chat. We talked about her book, again, Create Your Most Delicious Life. By the way, you can find Jill Stevens at thejoyfulwriter.com. Do support this amazing writer with her latest book, again, Create Your Most Delicious Life. And so we talked about the book, we talked about marketing, we talked about the importance of telling a good story in the right way, in the way that connects, okay? So great show. Thanks for being here. And with that, let's get on with the show. Here we go. Let's go. Hey there, I'm Patty Dominguez. You're about to discover what it means to position your brand and your business to stand out. This show explores the stories of small business owners just like you who are bringing their message out to the world and impacting their tribe. So if you want to take your business to a category of one status, then hang with me because this podcast shares everything you need to know about how to be more prolific with your brand so that you can have more profits. All right. Well, welcome to the Positioning to Profit podcast, Jill Stevens, my fellow comrade in the coaching world, as well as animal lover. And I have to say that you take the cake on that one. You are the epitome of an animal lover. You live it. You're a goat mom, a kitty mom. Tell me all the pets you have. Is that it? Or is there more?
I have 12 goats. So I have 2 new baby rescues. So there's 12 goat rescues total. 2 kittens are new to the family, a puppy who's new, about 6-7 months old now, and a couple hens, chickens, roosters are going on in the yard, and then we have a funny bunny up in the backyard.
Oh, so cute. And so where do you hail from?
Originally from New England, so in the US of A, but it was a little bit too cold for me. So right out of high school, I didn't even wait for graduation. I just went to Florida.
Awesome. And now you live on an island. Tell me again the name of it.
And now I live on a very small island that I don't disclose, but it's off the coast of St. Martin. I'm teasing. It's a 4-letter word. It's like, let's play a word game. You can figure it out, off the coast of St. Martin. Okay. It's a really small 5 square mile island called Saba.
Wow. Oh, okay, and that's it.
It's a Dutch island. And it's just a random thing that my Frenchman and I found, and I love it. It's great. And so just like a little hideaway.
And how long have you been there, by the way?
Well, I go by goat years. When I got my first rescue goat, I was just here to supervise like construction on a 100-year-old cottage, or renovations, I should say. And they're still going on. And it'll be 4 years ago, April 5th.
Oh,
so
wow.
Coming up soon. I've almost been here. And May 1st will be the 4-year birthday for my first goat, who walked up to my back door and said, "Ma."
And that was it.
That was my heart was stolen, and bottle fed that sucker for 9 months. Big goat with horns crawling on my lap, acting like a baby. Oh yeah. It's Storyville. I could write stories about this forever. Children's books are coming.
So speaking of stories, y'all, for you listening right now, Jill is not only the quintessential animal lover, but more importantly, and before we hit the record button, I said, Jill, how many books have you written? Like 200? And she's like, oh my God, you're so crazy. Actually, over 44 books that have been published, by the way, because there's a whole slew of books that I'm sure that she has in different journals. I always see with a journal. And what's really cool about that is that Jill can most definitely speak from a place of knowing. I have deep respect for anybody that has deep expertise, and Jill most definitely does. She has deep expertise in storytelling, writing, influencing, connecting the head to the heart at an emotional level that I think is really, really special. So I thought it'd be such a beautiful tribute to the topic of storytelling by having Jill come on board and really share this expertise that she has as to why storytelling has been not only her career, but also how you can really see this as a competitive advantage to add to your business. But first, tell us about your story writing journey, like as an author. Tell us a little bit about that journey.
Well, my journey has been hidden until now. So I've been a ghostwriter and a collaborator and just always behind the scenes on books for the last 20 plus years. And it's been wonderful. And the last 2 years, I've just been thinking, okay, I need to step out into the sunlight. I need to be able to help others. There's so many people out there that have a story. I think everybody has a story to tell. And a lot of people don't think they're worthy enough, good enough, or can do it, or don't know how to do it, perhaps, to tell that story. And I realized if I modeled stepping out of that creative closet and, stepped into the sunlight a little bit, then I could also encourage others to do the same. So I'm just now publishing my first book in my name. And it's been an amazing journey. It's almost like starting from page one of my own story. It's bizarre. It's been because it's my 44th book, but yet it's my first book.
Yeah.
So, which is a story all unto itself, right? And I think what's so interesting about stories is we tell stories every day. We are all master storytellers. And this is kind of what my book is about. And we don't even recognize it. We don't even recognize how good at storytelling we are. And we think it's hard. We think we can't do it in our business, but yet we do it in our life every day. We're telling our kids stories to get them to do what we want them to do, eat the veggies or do the homework. We're telling ourselves stories that either uplift us or hold us back in life. And I think in business, telling stories is the way to connect. The more vulnerable you can be, the more you share, the more people can relate to you. And right now, people need to relate to people. They don't need to relate to, and they're not going to relate to a product or a service. They're going to relate to the person behind the product or the service, in my opinion.
Oh my God, totally. And it goes with the copywriting quote. Oh gosh, any copywriters out there, don't kill me. Maybe Claude Hopkins said it. He said, people buy an emotion, they justify with logic. And that is such it really lends credence to the importance of being a good storyteller. And what you just said is like, we're all master storytellers, which I think that being a coach, people get stuck on that. They're like, I don't know what to say. I don't know how to say it. So talk to me about what you see as the hidden opportunity that everybody has to really leverage story in their life, in their business.
I think it's that story, like for me. So if I would just talk about the goats, people love that. They love listening about the goats and hearing about the goats. And you can tie the baby goats into anything. I can tie, the being on a little island in a little house that I'm renovating forever, that it's taking a long time, that I hit obstacle after obstacle. That can be a story that ties into the obstacles that we face in business, or the obstacle that I've faced with publishing this book, self-publishing this book. I've hit wall after wall after wall. Now, I can tell a story about that keeps me depressed, or I could tell a story that makes me give up and just go to a publishing house and be done with it already. Or I can tell a new story that, isn't this interesting? I wonder what this is showing me. So I think we can take anything in our life, and the more real it is, the more vulnerable it is, the more you it is, that is what makes it interesting. So it doesn't have to do with your business necessarily. Like, for instance, if you're a hunter, of all things, and you sell mortgages during your 9 to 5, you can talk about how you're a homesteader and you hunt your own land, and people would be interested in that. But people think that that's not interesting. People think fundamentally that their lives are not interesting, and they would rather scroll and click and live vicariously through somebody else's life. But somebody else's life, as you scroll and click, is all about the story. So either we can watch somebody else's story unfold, or we can start to use our own story to then promote ourselves or help another person get to know us, to find our service, our product, or our book, or what we have to offer the world.
Yeah. I mean, it's, if anything is the epitome of a differentiation opportunity, it's storytelling. It's storytelling, isn't it? Because it literally, we know that if you're different, highlighting the different, it's the thing that's going to help you stand out. It's the thing that's going to help you zag when everybody else is zigging. People think that it's in a formulaic way that you're supposed to do your marketing. And first I do this and then I do that. And what we're really saying is explore the things that make you you. Now, a common question that I get is, well, how do I know if I'm sharing too much? Do you have any thoughts on that? Because I know on social, some people go way too far, or like, what the hell does that have to do with anything? Can you give some good tips around what's good storytelling and what's bad storytelling?
I think it's the intention, to be honest. It's the intention behind, why are you sharing what you're sharing? Are you telling a story for your own benefit, to get a click or a like or accolades or praise, or what is the intention behind what you're doing? If your intention is to help another, to inspire another with your story, to share something that's profound for you, that impacted you, in the hopes that it will impact somebody else, that's very different than coming from a place of that wow factor, or that I want to get more likes or more comments. And it's a very different energy. I don't know if that answers specifically your question, but yeah, the intention behind what we put out there is so very important. And you can even look at this from a political landscape of what this, politics is all storytelling. Literally, news media is all storytelling. It's what's going to sell, and what is the intention of the stories that they're selling in that moment.
Right. And so to that point, the intention, I think, is kind of that first stage gate, if you will. But then when you're in that storytelling zone, what would be just some practical tips of how to make a story juicy and captivating, let's say?
How to make a story juicy and captivating. Wow, you're really like pulling out all the stops here with good words. I love this. Okay. So I think be real. Don't try to hype. Just be who you are. Be authentic with your language. It's almost like when people get into a conversation and they try to use elevated language, or language that they don't even understand. I love being, I used to be in academic worlds, right? So I'd go to an academic party and I just would walk around and hear this inflated way of speaking that just didn't make any sense at the end, but it was hysterical. So I just go from group to group to group and listen to these people out speaking each other with their language, with their word choices. And it was just ridiculous. So it was great food for fodder for me to go back and write about. But I think it's just be you. Be very, if you're flirty and fun, be flirty and fun. If you're serious, then your writing is serious. If you're goofy, like I'm goofy half the time, I'm just weird. So my writing is goofy and weird sometimes. My writing is also very lyrical at other times. Like this book became very, very lyrical, which makes sense because I've started writing songs that are actually like I turn on the radio and they're playing. Go figure. Like, so I think for a practical tip, start with a stream of consciousness. I love this exercise because a stream of consciousness is just pen to paper, write for 10, 11 minutes, go. It doesn't have to make sense. It doesn't have to be about a specific topic. It's what comes out. And in what comes out of you, there will be a nugget. There will be one little sentence, one thing, or maybe 10, or maybe 2. But that thing will lead to it can lead to a whole sales page. It could lead to a whole social post. It could lead to a whole email series, not even just one email, but a whole sequence of. So I think it's just being real, being who you are, not trying to copycat somebody else. We get into this. Oh,
that's a big one.
Copy. That's a big one. And then we get into, in the past, I know I have done it too, this imposter syndrome, like I'm not good enough. And what do I even have to say? And well, you know what? That's a story. You're master telling that story. Mm-hmm. Congratulations. Mm-hmm. So why not change it and tell a new story? And it's about looking at what other people do, but then what is the spin you can put on it? It's not about taking what somebody else has done and tweaking and making the shirt purple instead of blue, because then it's not your story. Then it's not your vibe. It's like, we have swipe files in copy, and right. Yeah. And I've got so many swipe files. Oh my goodness. Anyway, and we take the swipe copy for like a great sales page that really converted well and made a buttload during a launch. But if you want to take that sales page, you're not taking word for word everything on it. And you see this all the time. You see people copying like actual design elements, the story elements. No, a swipe copy or an example is just taking what's there and seeing what works, using the layout, the formula, the paragraphs, if you will, the intro. In a movie, we can have bookends. A movie starts the same way it ends. That's called a bookend. So you can take those kinds of elements, but then you tweak them and make them your own. And that's where your flavor comes in. That's where your deliciousness comes in. That's where only you can add what you have. And I think so many people either don't know who they are afraid to be who they are worried about being judged for who they are if they were to say anything for real. And so they spend their time copying somebody else's, tweaking just enough so that it's not like plagiarism outright. But then they wonder why they hear crickets. Well, it's not you.
Yeah.
It's not your vibe. It's not your energy. If you're just you, the people who need to hear from you will resonate, will come calling.
Exactly. And I think the really big one is, the copycatting, because it's the person who's doing it is looking at somebody else as some kind of a data point to say, oh, they're getting it right. So if I copy exactly what they're doing, then I'll get it right too. And it just makes you look like the best second-rate version of that person. At the best, that's what you're going to be, right? Instead of really owning who you are. And I know that I got into my head early on about like, okay, I'm going to edit my podcast and be really careful and what kind of intro, and overthinking and over perfecting. And because I have a stutter. And so I'm like, at this point, what's really fascinating is when I gave up on all that thing, people started connecting better. And not only that, but the storytelling and really owning who you are and mixing it in to everything that you do in these different touch points, like your website, your About Me page, and your podcast, and all these things, Joe, that what you're saying with the storytelling thing is that storytelling is really the foundation for the ecosystem that you're putting out there that becomes your brand. That is you. And there's so much power in that. It's just ridiculous. So understand the power that is before you when you really own that, people. The other thing is, okay, so here's some examples of how it goes wrong. So my pet peeve is like the whole girl boss thing. Like everyone I remember this one time I had a client of mine who said, oh, I'm going to do this photography thing. And it was like this whole kind of scenery with sprinkles and cupcakes. And she was a doctor. And I'm like, that is so not your brand. What are you doing? And it was just because that was the whole girl boss thing, that was that look at the time. And I think we're kind of still in it a little bit, but it's kind of
coming out of it.
Yeah, but we're coming out of it. So that whole thing of wanting to fit into this way of looking is a huge disservice. So that's a really big pet peeve of mine, is like copying what other people are doing, or the storytelling that other people are doing, or saying, I'm going to be really vulnerable right now. You're not being vulnerable. You're being formulaic. So can you give like a couple of those pet peeves, or where storytelling goes wrong, or how not to use it? I think that'd be really helpful. All right, we are about halfway through with the show, and I wanted to stop by with a question for you. Do you consider yourself smart, driven, and in control of your life, but for some reason growing your business is this strange exception? Or maybe you are able to start projects, but then quickly go into procrastination mode because you're not quite sure if you got it all right, or finding yourself avoiding figuring things out because you're not sure if you really have what it takes to grow your business. Think about it. All this self-doubt, imagine what it's costing you. And some part of you thinks, am I able to do this entrepreneur thing? Listen, sis, I get it. I really do. More than you can imagine. So what I know now is that after doing this for over 9 years, working on your internal repositioning, so to speak, is how you get past this. It's working with your higher self, tapping into more of that superpower, really owning it. So I put together this 21-day challenge. It's called the Meet My Higher Self 21-Day Challenge, so that you can discover what I call the triad of her success. It's the 3 key areas that you absolutely have to have in alignment in order to create the success that you desire and deserve. So the challenge is designed for super busy people in mind. The structure is easy, bite-sized action steps, audios, everything that you need for 21 days so that you can finally release this feeling of overwhelmed, or maybe it's a stress or the procrastination, or just mind yourself in general. So go to meetmyhigherself.com to find out more. 21 days discovering the tools to have you let go of all the junk that's keeping you stuck. It's possible. Just go to meetmyhigherself.com. And with that, let's get on with the show.
Well, I think what you just said is really important. People want to belong. I was just talking to my coach about this, and it's like, because yes, I have a coach and I'm not afraid to say it. And that right there is a story.
I was going to say, don't we all?
Yeah, I hope so. Gosh, if you don't have a coach, you need to get with Patty right now after this podcast. But I think where it goes wrong is people, exactly what you said, they try to be somebody they're not. They try to, I used to do it all the time. I would go to a conference and I'd put on my power suit. I'd put on my black blazer and my black slacks and my black boots. And then I'd put a scarf around my neck for a little splash of color. And I'd get my hair blown out so I wouldn't have to deal with it, but it would look professional and good. And I'd look like money, because who doesn't, look good with their hair blown out? Because that's important. And then but it wasn't me. I should have had a baby goat in my arms, like that would have been, but I didn't know goats at that point was my dharma, karma, life, whatever, right? Yeah. But at the same time, that wasn't me. I was putting on a character. And I think even in our stories, in our marketing, in how we're showing up in the world, half the time we're wearing a mask. And the thing is, if this is resonating with you, you might not even know who you are. And that's okay. But here's the thing. When you start to answer that question, who am I? You can't even answer, what do I want in my marketing? What do I want in my business? What do I want? What does success even look like? What do I want in my life? You can't even answer that if you don't know first, who am I? So who are you? And who do you want to be? I would sit down and write that story. Who are you? And when you can be yourself unapologetically, stop asking for permission to be yourself. Stop thinking you need another credential or another certification to be who you are. Just be who you are. Who are you? So I'm this quirky writer, the joyful writer, and I'm all about joy. And I talk about it all the time, to the point where it's probably like you want to gag on it, but people don't. They need joy right now. So it works. So the pet peeve is pretending to be what you are not, pretending to to show up a certain way because you're watching what other people are going to say about you. Or it's like that person, when a camera is on you, if you're not used to having a camera on you, you look at the camera.
Right.
And then it's weird because you're looking at the camera, but the camera, you're not supposed to, the camera is omnipresent. Like you're not supposed to know it's there. It's just capturing the moment. Yeah. But when you're not paying attention to the camera and you don't care what the camera catches, the good side, the bad side, the ugly side, the happy side, whatever, the snotty tiered side, like it doesn't matter. Then you're being who you're being. And then you're unstoppable because you're all of a sudden authentic. And I hate that word kind of because it's been overused, but you're willing to be vulnerable and not cry on camera because you're oversharing, but oh God.
I've seen that. I'm like, oh Lord have mercy.
That's a pet peeve.
Like that's too much, people. Or like it just, I was just going to say, can you say it louder for the people in the back, Jill? Because it's so true. I'm like, you better preach, Miss Stevens. It's true.
Oh my God. And that brings me back to my school days. I taught public school, high school English for 4.5 years in Florida. And that's as far as I lasted. But it was like, the Miss Stevens comment, it was like the thing I did, it was English. I taught them English and go figure. But I wasn't a teacher. I wasn't trained to be a teacher. I was thrown into the classroom in 10 days notice, had no idea what I was doing. And I wasn't great with names. Like I didn't know what to do with these kids. They were teenagers and it was like, oh my gosh. So the first thing I did was put a sentence on the board with my name, because I saw every movie, you write your name on the board, as a teacher, right? Mm-hmm. And I taught them day one, that's bell work. You come in, sit down, get out a piece of paper and you write 1 page every day on the topic on the board.
Oh, and I love that.
So bell work was the thing, right? And it wasn't because I was a great teacher and I knew what the hell I was doing. It was because I needed 5 minutes to take roll call, to breathe, to figure out what I was going to teach them and, to get my shit together because I wasn't a teacher. Right. I was just, and I wasn't pretending, but I kind of was pretending because I acted like I had my shit together. But it was bell work. I tell you what, within a couple weeks, those kids were sitting down before the bell even rang. Within a couple weeks, those questions on the board started to dictate like topics they wanted to discuss after we ended bell work. And it started to get them. So I encourage everybody, if you are writing a story, write, like physically, get a pen, not even type all the time, pen. It opens up more neural pathways in your freaking body brain because it just does. So typing is all well and good, but it's only like 10,000 neural pathways. This is hundreds of thousands of neural pathways. Oh, wow. It's a big deal. It lights up the brain. And it's not about making a mistake. It's just about writing. These kids would write. And then they'd be like, well, Miss Stevens, what if I want to write something and I don't really want you to read it? Oh, that's a good question.
Yeah.
So let's all talk about this. So then we get to have a discussion. So, and I think that's what storytelling or writing can do for somebody. It can open a door. So the kids got to make a mark on their page, a star on the page if they didn't want it read. They still had to turn it in because, somebody's going to slide and not do the work. But these kids at the end of the day, they came back to me years later and they said, oh my God, that was the best thing you ever did, is forcing me to write, because now I can write anything. I'm good at any job. I can communicate well. Writing should be the foundation for everyone. And I know should isn't a great word, but at the same time, when you can write and articulate what you are thinking, and when you can tell a story, craft a story in such a way that captivates your audience, you're unstoppable.
I know. My God, so much.
You're a force, to be reckoned with. And I think that's, and like the one thing we gloss over. So I'll back up really quick to what you had said. You said you had a stutter. That right there.
Oh, I still do.
Gold. But that's your story.
Like, yeah. Oh, yeah. It's so fascinating, Jill, because for me, I grew up because of childhood trauma, like I experienced abuse or whatever. And it was so shameful for me, so shameful. And what would happen is, it's really interesting because I couldn't say any word that started with P or D, like my name, Patty Dominguez, S, T, W, Z, M, just every letter. So I was a walking thesaurus. Like I would look at how to swap out words and avoid situations. But at the same time, the misery of it was I was an extrovert. And it was like Giant in Chains. Like I just wanted to talk to everybody and get out there, and I felt so confined. And so long story short, that thing that I was so ashamed of well into my adulthood, I finally was like, you know what? Fuck it. I'm just who I am. And what's so fascinating is that to people, they're like, oh, cool. Like it didn't matter. I made it so shameful. And I carried the weight of the world in my shoulders. Like I'm so embarrassed that I've been abused and all these things. And it just, it opens the door to humanness. I don't know, that's not a word. I need your help.
But it is a word. It's totally a word. Humanness. It opens the door and it allows what we think is shameful is what other people are going to latch onto and love you for because you're being real. You're being authentic. You're not being photoshopped and airbrushed to death and put a pet peeve and put up there in, with perfect lighting. Although I do have perfect lighting right now. I apologize. No.
You're so funny.
But we need better lighting for this situation. This is the time of day where the dusk, settles and all of a sudden I'd be in the dark and you wouldn't see me if I didn't have a light on. And that's a story. Like everything can be a story. I think take what's shameful. And somebody really amazing said to me that shame cannot live in the sunlight. So when we pull that thing out that we're afraid to talk about, and we tell a story around it, not from a place of trying to get attention. Remember that intention behind sharing the story, but I have a motto. If I impact one, I have won. If I impact
I love that.
one, I have won. That's it.
I love that.
So every book I write, as long as I impact one person, job done. I'm good.
Oh, I love that, Jill.
Right. So, and it changes everything because then it's like, so that's a story that right there. You could write emails about that.
Oh my, it's in my welcome sequence. It's on my website and it's not for anything, but I use it as a catalyst when I'm so legitimately, deeply, deeply grateful when somebody's like, you're such a good speaker. I'm like, holy shit. If you only knew what it took to get here.
Okay. So my story, exactly. But these are the things, like people think I must have been an amazing student in English and no grammar. Are you kidding me? I was awful. I'm dyslexic. I didn't read until I was 9 years old.
Oh my God.
I was in special ed when special ed was not special. It was that place where some of the kids were banging their heads against the wall and you kind of sat and were waiting for a desk to fly across the room. So I learned to take care of everybody else and to mother hen everybody else and not to do my work because that was hard and all the P's and Q's would jump on the page and I didn't know what was going on. And so I brushed that off. But it was a teacher who, my third teacher of the year in fifth grade, I was 11 years old, and he sat me down at his desk, and I thought I was in trouble, walking into a brand new classroom, and he had a stack of paper and a pencil, and he said, tell me your story. And at first I was like public speaking. Oh my God, to a brand new room with 40 eyeballs looking at me. I almost had a heart attack. I could feel myself starting to pass out. And he pointed to the paper. And he pointed to his seat and I got to sit down there at his desk with all the kids looking at me all day long and write my story. It's like nobody had asked me. Can you imagine an 11-year-old in the third school in the same year? I had a story to tell. That was not an easy year. It was not an easy life. So somebody allowing me the time and the space and who cares what the classwork is like that'll wait for tomorrow. I was given the opportunity to tell a story on paper, my story, and I didn't have to turn it in. And how amazing is that? I wish I could find that back.
Beautiful.
Yeah. So that right there is a thread and a theme I can carry through everything. Another theme, and just take my husband. I don't call him my husband. He's the fabulous Frenchman because he happens to be French and he happens to be fabulous.
You're right.
When he's not being and I just want to smack him upside the head. But, and is that because he's French or is that because he's a man or is that because he's my husband? Who knows? But each of those things is a story I can talk about, right? So I have a tendency to name things, to name people in my life, the fabulous Frenchman, the pseudo mom, the bio mom. I do this in my book that is just coming out now that I mentioned. And like I said, that book is actually all about stories and the stories we tell.
I love it. Okay, so tell us a little bit more about your book. When's it coming? When can we all get it? Tell us all the goods.
So the whole book thing has been interesting because it's been hit a wall. It's been Storyville at every turn. And we've had issue after issue after issue, but the book should be out in the next week or so. It is up on Kindle and people will be able to get it, ASAP, like Saturday. But by the time this airs, it should be up and available. The title is called Create Your Most Delicious Life. Life's a bitch, especially now. Make it a joy.
I love that. That's so you.
It's so me, because and the reason delicious is in there. If you know me, if you've been around me, if I've been coaching you, you know that I say the word delicious all the time and inappropriately. And I always say things inappropriately. That's just who I am. So just like I'll be in a meeting and a baby goat will baa and people will be like, what?
Oh my God. We have these coaches calls and with Jim Fortin, who is our leader, our fearless leader in that space that we all participated. And inevitably you'll hear the go. He's like, wait a minute, is that a go? I'm like, yes, it's Jill. Like it's
the baby goat.
Yeah, it's so funny. It's so funny.
I can't help myself.
Oh, that's so good.
Yeah. So the book is a series of 141 essays. Some of them are a page. Some of them are a couple pages. So it's really, you can eat it in bite-sized, delicious pieces, right? And if you have a spare moment, or it's something that you can really sink into and read. It's meant... Here's another story. This is fun because the stories, we tend to interpret things and we tend to make assumptions. So I had some first look readers read the book, right? Well, the book is basically for women, 40s, 50s, 60s, maybe 30s. And it's that woman who's maybe midlife crisis, not sure where she's going, not sure who she is, been living a life for her kids, maybe lost herself along the way, living a job she wasn't in love with, now wondering what the heck do I do next? It's kind of that. And it relates to me. Like, what was I doing? Because we write what we know sometimes. So I had a guy on my wait list to read the book. And I was sending out the book and I sent each of the 100 people on the list the book, a separate individual email. And I acknowledged each one. And I wanted to send them the energy behind the book and the joy and the love and thank them for being a part of this process. So I knew this guy. When I hit his name, it was like, what? A guy? And I judged it. It's like, oh, he doesn't belong on the list. I told a story. So I shouldn't send him the book. And I almost didn't send Ken the book, this guy. Do you know I did? Because I knew that I was judging myself. I knew I was telling a story about, he doesn't want this book. What is he even doing here? This was a mistake, obviously. I sent him the book. He was the first person to read the book cover to cover, the first person to get back to me, and the first person to be moved and to write an amazing review.
Oh, I love that. See what happens?
Wow. When we step out of the story of trying to craft the story and allow the story to take wings of its own, to take flight and to be what it's going to be. So we get to be the storyteller that starts the tale. But when you're really good at this, the tale continues without you, beyond you.
Love that.
All of my books that I've written, when I turn it over, my work is done. Now it's up to the reader to receive it, to reject it, and I'm out. And it's okay, whatever the person does. It goes back to that motto of impact one and I have one.
Oh, I love that. I love it. That is such a quotable. I'm like,
you need a t-shirt.
Oh my God, I love it. It's such a beautifully empowering statement. That one snapped. You snapped with that one, Jill.
Thank you. Yeah. Feel free to steal it.
No, I'm totally giving credit where credit is due on that one. That's a killer quote. Okay, Jill. So I have, as we're turning the corner, some questions for you just off the cuff. And you just want to answer however you organically will. Okay, what's your idea of perfect happiness?
Oh, waking up to an island view of the ocean, the sun just rising over the ocean, a baby goat, either around the corner or in my arms, my husband making a cup of coffee. That's just, those quiet moments of needing nothing, doing nothing, just being present, with nature, with the animals, with somebody I love.
I love that. What is your greatest extravagance?
Probably goats.
Okay.
Goats and crystals. I love crystal.
I know.
I love crystal. I have this heart amethyst. It's more than 100 pounds. I can't even lift it. I can barely clean it. It's amazing. And it's the shape of a heart. It's just beautiful.
That's gorgeous. Okay. Yeah. What talent would you most like to have?
Ooh, what talent? Dance.
I know. That's a good answer. What's your greatest fear?
Oh, my greatest fear, I think up until recently, I can share that, was to be seen, to be out there as me. And it was because I was worried about being judged or about people fangirling me. Fangirling is a real ooh, that's scary to me. Because let's face it, I put my pants on the same way you do. I'm nothing special, So I think, but I think now anything that scares me, I just kind of lean into it. Yeah. Because I know that there's a lesson there.
And there's something big on the other side of it.
Oh, really big. Yep.
Yeah. Agreed. Mm-hmm. Good answer. Okay. And after all is said and done, what do you want your legacy to be?
My legacy would be sprinkling joy, across the planet, and just little fairy dust joy clouds that encompass people. Because I think joy, happiness is something that's fleeting. Happiness is usually because of an external situation, whereas joy, like love, that's intrinsic. It's just in you. If you choose to have it in you, I can love my Frenchman, but I can't really describe it. I can't really explain it, and I can't really share it. It's just how I feel. And I think this is how mothers feel when they hold their child in their arms. Maybe that's a good relation. You can never nobody can feel that same love. It's you. It's made, and joy is the same thing. It's available to each of us. I really think it's the default setting that we have as children. More than happiness. Happiness comes and goes in waves, but joy is something that we can tap back into, and it's our birthright. And if we tap into it, everything gets better because abundance follows joy.
Love that. Well, I believe you're super special and you're so fabulous. How can people get a hold of you, your book, connect with you on socials? What's the best place to get started with that?
So my website is thejoyfulwriter.com. You can always go there and all the information is on there. And then you can always do a search on Amazon for Create Your Most Delicious Life. But you can just find me, Jill R. Stevens, on Facebook. But probably my website is the best place. The Joyful Writer. On Instagram, I am The Joyful Writer.
The Joyful Writer. I love it. Okay, Jill Stevens, thank you so much for being on the podcast. I so appreciate you. I'm excited. I'm really excited about your book. I'm going to definitely be pimping out your book to people because I love the message behind it. I think is really, really important. So thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you for having me, Patty. You're amazing.
Love you, sister. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Hey there, thanks for checking out this episode of Positioning to Profit. Please leave a review if you have gained a benefit from this episode. I appreciate it greatly, and I will give you a shout out on the show as well. I so appreciate the ratings and reviews. Okay, also for the positioning extravaganza, head over to positioningtoprofit.com. There's lots of goodies over there. It's a treasure chest of freebies as well as beautiful courses that will help you to establish your category of one and move your brand forward. And again, connect with me over on socials or on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. I'm on the socials. So I hope to connect with you there. And I look forward to catching up with you real soon.